day. Fat loading. That's right, not carb loading, fat loading. I often get questions here and there about people that want to forego carb loading before a show and maybe want to fat load. Okay, that's a very common question pertaining to peaking for a bodybuilding contest. Here's my ideology behind the premise of fat loading instead of carb loading. When you are in a super lean pre-contest conditioning state, it's a very safe protocol. It's almost fail-proof, and what I mean by that is that whenever you're fat loading, usually people whenever they fat load have previously been on a more so ketogenic diet where carbs are regulated, fats are usually medium. Bodybuilders usually don't go full keto where it's like 80% fat. Bodybuilders do like a pseudo made up keto diet that's really about 50% fats and then 30% protein or so. So in that case, your body, since it's not used to glycogen or synthesis, or it's not used to processing glucose on a daily basis since you are on a fat diet, throwing a huge curveball at the end of your pre-contest phase, the peak, with a bunch of carbs your body's not used to, can be kind of a gamble, you could say. So therefore, something like fat loading when a super lean state could be foolproof. And usually what people do is whenever they fat load, it's usually maybe 2 days out or even then 1 day out, they'll start loading on fatty cuts of steak and salmon and maybe nut butters and stuff like that they've been used to throughout the diet. They'll just increase the amount. And what actually happens here is that obviously carbs, starches, glucose converts into glycogen, okay, and that fills out your muscle cells. Fats can make its way to glycogen synthesis, but it's a very inefficient process, and it has to go through converting into glycerol and then glycerol into glucose, and then basically that's a form of gluconeogenesis via fats converting into glycerol and then glucose into glycogen. Okay, so it's a very inefficient process. So you're going to get some conversion there, but it's something I wouldn't rely on. So really the competitor is going to get minor glucose uptake from the glycerol conversion, which is a mild load, so you surely won't spill over. Then also they're going to have excess protein because now they're going to load on, maybe instead of 8-ounce steak, they're going to load on 16-ounce steak. And anyone that knows more about gluconeogenesis, they're going to get protein turnover from the excess ounces of steak. Now that protein will have conversion from gluconeogenesis then into glucose from then glycogen synthesis into the muscle. So you're going to get a little bit of glucose uptake from glycerol and then from gluconeogenesis from protein. And that, my friends, will lead to a very mild load into the muscle cells, and you surely won't spill over that way. And you're going to be satiated and full, and you're going to have some minor filling out from intramuscular triglycerides too from the elevated fat levels, with no glucose or carbs involved. So your insulin levels won't get spiked nearly as much as loading on rice cakes and jam and all that stuff. So yeah, fat loading in that sense is really carb loading. It's really should be called inefficient carb loading, if that makes sense. So yeah, fat loading definitely has merit, but I definitely wouldn't fat load for someone that was on the opposite during pre-contest and relied on carbohydrates and a low-fat diet, because then an influx of fat towards the very end would cause gastrointestinal distress and then put your stomach in knots. Okay, so you want to be prepared and adjusted to such a diet to use that protocol. So yes, there is a way to fat load, and that's the kind of state you need to be in prior to employing that. There you have it.